All right, let's dive right into this explainer and figure out how we can actually find some peace in a world that is just completely full of noise, constant distractions, and this endless, exhausting struggle for control. Look, if you've ever felt your blood pressure absolutely skyrocket over a traffic jam, a dropped Wi-Fi signal, or just the chaos of the 24-hour news cycle, I promise you, you are not alone. Every single day we're bombarded by forces we literally cannot command. So today we're going to break down some incredibly profound insights from Stoicism that offer a brilliant, highly practical cheat code for navigating all that modern chaos. To kick things off, we have to honestly ask ourselves a pretty fundamental question. Why do we fight forces that are so far beyond our command? We pour so much energy and, let's be real, so much unnecessary stress into trying to control the uncontrollable. Whether it's the weather, unexpected curveballs at work, or just the way other people behave, it is a battle we are absolutely guaranteed to lose. But we do it anyway, right? We somehow trick ourselves into thinking that if we just plan perfectly and try hard enough, we can literally bend the world to our will. But reality just doesn't work that way. And because reality doesn't play along, we end up falling into this massive psychological trap. The painful truth here is that the harder we chase this illusion of safety by trying to control our circumstances, the more powerless, anxious, and exhausted we actually become. It's exactly like running on a hamster wheel that just speeds up the faster you sprint. We've been completely conditioned to believe that managing every tiny little detail keeps us safe from uncertainty. But the wild thing is, this desperate need for control is the exact engine driving our stress and disappointment. Now, we really need to bust a massive myth right off the bat. When most people hear the word detachment, they immediately picture a robot, someone cold, totally indifferent, or just passively hiding from life in a dark room. But Stoic detachment? It's not about giving up or suppressing your humanity at all. It's actually a highly active, dynamic process. It's all about redirecting your energy inward to master your own mind and your own reactions. It is the ultimate tool for emotional independence. You're not disconnecting from the world. You're consciously choosing how you respond to it, instead of just reacting impulsively to every little thing. Our historical foundation for this comes from the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, who famously wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Now, what's so incredible about this is context. Aurelius was literally the most powerful man in the world at the time. I mean, the guy commanded entire armies in a sprawling empire, yet he realized that his truest, most unbreakable power was entirely internal. True strength comes from becoming the architect of your own peace, taking back the only thing you ever truly had the right to control in the first place, yourself. Okay, so how do we actually pull this off in real life? Breaking free from the control trap is basically a 3-step journey. First, you just have to swallow your pride and recognize that you simply cannot force outcomes to go your way, no matter how much you care. Second, you pivot. You focus 100% of your energy on your own deliberate response to the situation. And finally, you lean in and actually embrace the uncertainty. When you link these steps together, it's basically like a psychological martial art. You start swimming with the current of life, using its momentum, rather than exhausting yourself fighting against it. A huge part of letting go of that control is wrapping our heads around impermanence. It's just the stark reality that everything, our relationships, our successes, and even our deepest, darkest pain, is temporary and constantly changing. Nothing lasts forever. Now, I know that might sound a bit intimidating at first, but accepting impermanence actually triggers this incredibly beautiful shift in perspective. Think about how often we totally ruin a great moment, like the last 2 days of an amazing vacation, simply because we're already dreading the flight home. When we stop fighting the reality of change, we can actually start savoring the present without that looming, paralyzing fear of loss. Which brings us to this mind-blowing insight from Epictetus. Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. Now here's a wild contrast to our Roman emperor from earlier. Epictetus was actually born a slave. Yet he arrived at the exact same conclusion about power and control. And while he was talking about material things, this applies perfectly to our emotional wealth too. By loosening our white-knuckle grip on emotional attachments and external outcomes, we free ourselves from the constant roller coaster of disappointment. We gain the ultimate freedom by simply needing less. But attachments aren't just about stuff or specific events, right? They are very often about people, which leads us straight into the validation trap. Whether it's hunting for likes online, stressing over others' opinions, or tying our self-worth to a little red notification bubble on our phones, we are basically handing the outside world the keys to our happiness. When we constantly seek external praise, we are literally chaining ourselves to the fleeting, unpredictable opinions of others. It just keeps us deeply insecure. constantly exhausted, and always waiting for someone else to validate our existence. To bridge this ancient wisdom with more modern thinking, we can look to the 19th century philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche. He famously said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." This perfectly echoes that Stoic goal of internal focus. When you validate yourself from within and discover your own intrinsic purpose, your own personal why, you completely reclaim your freedom. You realize that your value is intrinsic. You no longer need anyone else's applause to feel complete, and that makes you incredibly resilient to the difficult, unexpected hows that life is inevitably going to throw at you. This focus on the internal brings up a super relevant question for our modern, hyper-connected lives. How much of the noise around you actually serves you? We live in a society that aggressively demands our constant attention. Between the endless pings, the doom scrolling, the unsolicited advice, and the outrage-driven trends, we are just drowning in chatter. We really have to take a step back and ask how much of this relentless noise actually brings us peace or helps us grow. For most of us, if you're being completely honest, the answer is almost none of it. It's just mental junk food. And that is exactly why the source makes this absolutely killer point. Silence is a weapon. Really think about that for a second. Silence isn't just the absence of sound. It is an active, powerful space where you get to filter out the noise. It's a boundary you set for yourself. Stepping into silence allows you to reconnect with your true self, catch your breath, and choose to respond thoughtfully rather than just reacting impulsively to whatever is screaming for your attention that minute. In the constant, exhausting hustle of the modern world, stepping back into silence is the primary way you reclaim control of your mind. Once you clear out that noise and find that inner clarity, it completely transforms how you handle adversity. Now, treating pain as a tool goes completely against our basic biological programming. Our brains are wired to view pain as an enemy, something to run away from, like touching a hot stove. But the Stoic approach requires this really fascinating, counterintuitive shift when it comes to emotional pain. Hardship is totally inevitable, right? But if we detach from that desperate need for constant comfort, we can actually transform our pain from a destructive enemy into our absolute greatest teacher. It literally becomes the raw fuel for our growth and resilience. Seneca totally hit the nail on the head regarding how we usually mishandle this adversity when he said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." I mean, think about lying awake at 3 a.m., projecting crazy worst-case scenarios and letting overthinking completely hijack your brain over things that haven't even happened yet. We endlessly magnify our own pain. But having emotional independence allows us to take a step back and observe our emotions as temporary waves rather than permanent states of being. We acknowledge the pain when it arrives, for sure, but we absolutely refuse to let it drown us. I absolutely love how Carl Jung reinforces this shift in mindset. I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. That completely flips the script. It moves you from being a passive victim of circumstance to the active creator of your own reality. Every single setback, betrayal, or failure doesn't define your identity, and it definitely doesn't write the end of your story. You aren't just a helpless passenger in the car crash of life. You're the mechanic who gathers up the broken parts and builds a much stronger, more resilient vehicle to move forward in. So, practically speaking, what does this emotional alchemy actually look like step by step? It's a very deliberate process of turning pain into strength. First, you have to fully acknowledge the pain, don't suppress it, and please, no toxic positivity. Actually experience it. Second, you extract the cold, hard lesson from the setback. Third, you adopt your course based on that newly acquired wisdom. And finally, you emerge stronger. By consciously embracing these exact steps during the tough times, you forge an unbreakable version of yourself. You root yourself in the profound understanding that while pain is an inevitable part of life, suffering is always optional. When you put all these pieces together, you arrive at this beautiful, kind of paradoxical realization. True freedom is letting go of the need to control everything. We almost always think that freedom means having the power to make the world bend to our exact wishes. But it's actually the exact opposite. True freedom is not needing the world to cooperate in the first place. When you finally stop chasing the exhausting illusion of control and just fully accept life's wild unpredictability, you unlock the ultimate inner freedom to live authentically, peacefully, and entirely on your own terms. To really lock this in, let's look at one more thought from Jung. Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens. That quote encapsulates literally everything we've been talking about in this explainer.
Filtering out the noise, completely ignoring external validation, and mastering your inner world makes you an untouchable force of nature. It means you are fully capable of weathering any storm with absolute grace, simply because your peace is anchored deeply and entirely within yourself, safely out of reach from the chaotic, shifting world outside. So as we wrap up this explainer, I'm going to leave you with one final, provocative question. Will you continue fighting the uncontrollable, or will you master yourself? Take a real moment today to genuinely ask yourself where you are going to invest your precious energy moving forward. Stop battling the weather, the traffic, and the endless, exhausting opinions of everyone else online. Instead, consider what incredible, true power you might unlock by simply letting go of the illusion of control. Because the truth is, when you master your inner world, you completely master your life.